Hello there. So I was going through some of my much older videos, trying to think of which videos could use an update in terms of like information or even viewership, and I came across my old rape culture video. And this video is interesting because you may have noticed that even just the term rape culture isn't something people really say anymore. People just talk about rape normally, right? But the actual term, our culture, was a terminology SJW started using in like 2015 or so, right? And it's because at the time, well, they probably still think it, they just don't talk about it as much, was that they believed that R-ing only women, of course, because they believe that men can't be victims because they're stupid. They believed that, like, it was basically a culture to do that to women and, like, basically normalize it. That's how brain dead they are. So they started not just talking about R, but literally saying our culture to make it sound normalized, even though it's not normalized in first world countries like Canada, the US, the UK, etc. Like, we're not in fucking Iraq here, you know? And yeah, it's just crazy. So people obviously talk about it, but they don't really say this terminology anymore. So I wanted to give you guys an updated video to let you guys know that the term doesn't really get used very much, but also still debunk what I had said in the original video. One thing I wanted to reiterate from the original video was how, see, when it comes to R in general, people genuinely believe that only women are victims, which is just flat out wrong. Are women R'd more than men? 100% yes. I mean, even if I find stats that say that it's like 50-50, or some of them even say men more, and FYI, the reason why some stats say that men are R'd more is because they're also including men R-ing other men. And when you include that, both men being R'd by other men and women, whereas the comparison is women being R'd by men and other women, it does actually go crazy high for men, but does it outweigh women? I don't really think so. Plus, not to mention that those stats include prison, and as we know, men are raping other men in prison all the time. Female inmates do it too, but not as often. But even still, there's so much skewed information there, and that's a stat where I think it's crazy to believe that as a whole, well, not as a whole, sorry, I'm not talking worldwide. We're talking about first world countries. It's crazy to think that men are raped more than women, or even 50-50. I think most rational people know that overall in society, women face that form of abuse more. Domestically, I already have a video on that. Take a look at my domestic abuse video, but here we're talking about sexual abuse, not domestic abuse. Anyway, but it is still very bad for men in other ways. Even if we are R'd less often, we still face things that women don't face, such as we face false allegations at a rapidly higher rate than women, like a crazy rapidly higher rate. Men are also scared to come forward about a female abuser, whether if it is sexual or physical, because men are often laughed at, shamed, told, well, what did you do wrong to make her do that to you? You know, men are shamed and laughed at, not believed. Men are blamed for their abuse. Like, it's really fucking bad, right? Men are often not believed. Men are victimized and demonized. It's horrible. So men have the negative side of that, not facing the actual R in and of itself more often, but the aftermath, the demonization, the blame, all that shit is what men face with stats that are like hundreds, thousands of % higher than women. It's crazy. But either way, I still wanted to point out a very important stat that a lot of people don't know, and I pointed this out in like videos years ago, as far back as 2016 I first brought this up. But I'll say it here for people who still don't know as of 2024. Did you know that up until 2013, rape, according to the FBI, wasn't even considered to exist against men? Up until 2013, the actual definition of rape was unwanted sexual acts upon a female. It only said the word female. After 2013, they updated the definition to say unwanted sexual acts on a person, so that men were included. But that just goes to show you how much men don't matter, because we weren't even part of the definition of rape until 2013. I think now most people know that, but I think some people don't, so I'm just making sure. The next thing I want to bring up from the old video was actually I did make a mistake when it came to rape stats. Now, SJWs always parrot a stat of 1 in 5 women will be raped and 1 in 4. Now, these stats were debunked many times around like 2015, 2016, but I'll say it because it was in the original video, which is that those stats actually very biasly included consensual, which already debunks the whole point that it's an R if it's consensual, but the stats actually considered in the stats consensual drunk sex as R. For real, they actually did. And both consensual drunk sex and where the woman later, when she sobered up, regretted doing it. Now, obviously, to any rational person, this should not be part of the rape stats because it was consensual. Not to mention that, like, they tried to villainize men, as always, by saying, like, well, it's because she was drunk and he had sex with her. Okay, but he was drunk too. So it's either they both raped each other or neither of them did. You can't just fucking say that the man's to blame because he's a fucking man. I know that's what we've been doing in society for the last 10 years, but you can't do that if you're a rational, logical person. But anyway, that's why the 1 in 5 stat was actually debunked years ago, because it literally included consensual drunk sex as R, and people saw that when the study was done and were like, this is the most fucked up study I've ever seen in my life, this is unfair and you're targeting men. And another important thing to point out is how people even view R in our modern culture. Like, ever since the SJW culture took over, obviously, women in SJWs started calling rape when nothing was actually even happening. Now, of course, not all women are crazy like this, of course, but there started to be an influx of crazy, like, feminist SJW women who, and this is also the reason why men don't approach women anymore, but, like, oh, a man approached me at a bar and tapped me on the shoulder. I was harassed or assaulted or AR'd. And you might think that I'm making a joke here, but I'm not. This has been happening for over 10 years. Women, primarily, like, crazy feministic SJW women, were claiming that if a man even talks to me, taps me on the shoulder, buys me a drink, approaches me at a bar, I've been assaulted. I remember, this is way back, I remember in 2015, I actually saw a video. I mean, it's been years ago since I saw this video, but I remember there was a video that was, like, doing one of those, like, you know, here's some information about rape or whatever, right? And it was literally a woman. She straight up says, I witnessed a man yelling at my mother, and I was raped. I'm not joking. She actually fucking said that she was raped because a man yelled at her mom. What? And you might think, oh, okay, Matt, but these are like rare instances. Okay, these are just like social media SJW. No, this ended up being widespread for a long time during like the peak of it. Well, obviously we're still in SJW culture, but during the peak of it, this was widespread and huge and a very big issue, and it became normal to villainize men who were just like approaching women or talking to them or not. I mean, this became very widespread for a long time, and it's still going on today, because if you look at how things are today, men are still very afraid to approach women. Men are afraid to go to the gym anymore because there are women who are bending over at the gym for TikTok, and if a man happens to be standing behind her and, God forbid, glances in her direction, he's accused of rape or assault from that too. It's just that, so it's happening today. It started like, you know, over 10 years ago, and it's still happening today, where men are being demonized just for existing or talking or looking and not even doing anything remotely sexual. It's horrible. Anyway, from this point forward, I'm going to actually show you the rest of my original video, because the rest of it is actually really good, and I don't need to re-edit it or refilm it. SJWs also say that we live in a misogynistic society, aka rape culture, and thus women are not believed. Then how are 98% of rape accusations true? Yes, many SJWs and feminists will have you believe that 98% of all rape accusations are true. Well, I call bullshit on this. It's either we live in a male-dominated society and these rape accusations come out as fake, or these accusations are true and society is believing women. You can't play the victim on both sides and think it makes sense. Don't give me this 98% true stat, because it's absolute bullshit. You cannot come at me saying,
98% of rape accusations are true, but women are never believed and women are kept down. If women are not believed, you won't get a 98% stat. The fact is, none of these stats are credible. And the reason for all of this is because SJWs have ruined the definition, just like I said. From rape being forced sex, its actual definition, to a mere touch on the shoulder. Because SJWs love being victims. It's your fault. But that's not the only reason these stats aren't credible. The other reason is because rape is underreported. But not by women. It's underreported by men. And do you know why? Men are scared to come forward out of fear of being laughed at. And that's the most disgusting thing about our current culture that SJWs have caused, is that because of the belief that men can't be raped, men are afraid to come out. Men are very afraid to come out because they have fear of being laughed at. Oh, you can't rape a man, so if a man comes out and says he was, he's just being a baby. That's the mentality our culture has now. So of course a man's not going to want to come out. Women, however, get support if they do. They're encouraged to. They face no consequence if they're lying or telling the truth. How about this fact, that when men are accused of rape, even if he's proven innocent, his life is completely ruined. When a man is accused of rape, he could lose his job, his friends, his family. His life is ruined. Money and legal fees. His life is ruined completely. A man's reputation and his life is often ruined by a rape accusation, even if he's proven innocent. Yes, but women are the victims here. Even the term rape culture within itself is undermining real victims, because they're simplifying it by saying a touch on the shoulder is rape. Also, they're using it as a buzzword to justify their idiocy. The fact is, there is no such thing as a rape culture. Yes, rape happens, but we do not live in a culture of rape. There is no such thing as rape culture. So those are the things that you got to take from this video. Number one, stop saying rape culture, because it is disgusting, it is wrong, and it undermines real victims. And number two, as far as male victims go, we need to start believing them more. We really shouldn't be believing anybody without evidence. But with this disgusting SJW culture turning everything into a trend and believe all women without proof, no. Because that's not right to believe somebody without evidence. But also, there are many male victims who are suffering. That's the truth about rape. For the record.